Hello, welcome back to Post-Traumatic Revelations. I am your host, Afrah Caraballo, and today's episode we are looking at the concept of windows in the wall of the post-traumatic prison, how we might create them and use them to improve our post-traumatic conditions. So, what is a window? In a very literal sense, a window is an opening in a wall. A window is also that exception in the barrier, that exception in the wall. And they allow us to see out past the wall. They allow the flow of light, the flow of air. A window allows us to see possibility. It also allows others to see inside. So, a window is a way of seeing, learning, and exploring something new. It gives us some insight. It gives us a bit of a contrast to that wall. With a window, there is possibility, the possibility for change. So, in this episode, we're looking at the wall of our post traumatic prison, those walls made of persistent judgment, guilt, and shame. I want to warn you. So, warning, this episode is going deep. This episode is going deep into the prison of the post traumatic wall made of judgment, guilt, and shame. And like many high security prisons, the deeper and the darker it is, the dirtier it is. So there will be some adult language used throughout this episode. So I'll give you a chance to make your decision. Awesome. You're still with me. So I'm hoping to be a small light, a small reminder, a mirror of sorts for you. I want to remind you of who you really are. I want to remind you that you are not your trauma. You are not your depression. You are not your anxiety. You're not your addiction. I want to remind you that you are so much more. And as I'm reminding you, I'm also reminding myself. I want everyone to know that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, everyone, everywhere, I want you to know that love, hope, and healing is possible post traumatically. I truly believe that every wound can heal with time, attention, and support. I believe that real recovery is possible. And by itself, time heals nothing. You must give the trauma, you must give the wound the attention and support that it needs to heal. There must be a sense of safety because ultimately, no safety, no healing, period. So here we are. We've talked about permission, that internal allowing, allowing yourself to even consider the possibility of a better life. Then we touched on negotiating that permission with those vicious and rigid, seemingly unyielding gatekeepers, those thoughts and beliefs keeping us trapped, those judgments, guilt, and shame, those thoughts and beliefs that say to us not only no, but hell no. You can't have a better life. You can't have anything good. You don't deserve it. Those damning thoughts that say you're too dirty, too damaged, too dumb, too stupid, too ugly, and unlovable. Those voices that tell you you're nothing and you'll always be nothing, or worse, you ain't shit and you'll always be shit. I'll never amount to anything. You're worthless. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty or handsome enough. You ain't worth a damn thing. And you don't deserve to have a better life. You don't deserve to be better. You get what you deserve and you got what you deserve. Shut up about it. Yeah, gatekeepers can be pretty mean, pretty vicious, but they come from a deep and dark place. They come from a pain filled place. These negative beliefs come from deep, dark, unresolved pain. The deepest, darkest fears make up the wall, fueling the judgment, the guilt, and the shame. Unresolved trauma, like an unhealed physical wound, can fester and spread and infect other parts of our bodies, other parts of our lives in a very toxic way. But even in the darkest of places, there is exception. I know you thought I was going to say there's light, and that is so cliche. And it's true. There is no never, there is no always. When it comes to human beings, there are always those exceptions and those outliers. We celebrate, fear, even condemn the rebels, the outliers, the outcasts. And our gatekeepers are no different. They guard against possible threats, possible weakness, those possible weak spots in the post traumatic wall. But there are exceptions. There are times when the meanest asshole takes a break. There are times when the ugliest, dirtiest, most damaged, dumbest, weakest person just isn't. There are moments when the ass beatings stop, when the raping stops, when the car crash ends, when the tornado, hurricane, earthquake, or tsunami ends. There are times when the shootings, explosions, divorces stop. There are times when the pain isn't as bad. There are times when you have a good idea, a moment of fresh air, a glimmer of hope, a ray of light in those deep, dark, hopeless places, in those deep, dark pits of suffering, the smallest kindnesses. There are the moments of what if, moments of possibility. And with enough of these moments, you can get permission to ponder what if inside yourself. And this permission leads to engaging in conversation. You start talking to those vicious negative thoughts, those guards, those gatekeepers. These moments of exception are like loose bricks in the wall, loose bricks in the post traumatic prison, the post traumatic wall made up of judgment, guilt, and shame. These exceptional moments are where possibility gives way to permission, and that permission can give way to courage, courage to entertain the maybes, courage to entertain your yeah buts, courage to entertain the what ifs. These negotiations of permission lead to loosening of these bricks, loosening of those bricks of always and never, that extreme either or thinking. These negotiation leads to windows that while not doors are noticeable contrasts to that big wall, to that wall of all or nothing thinking, to that feeling of isolation and solitary confinement. A window can be the difference between life and death for so many trauma victims. The smallest window in these walls of judgment, guilt, and shame can feel like freedom. For some trauma survivors, it is a glimpse of what's possible. And as I'm talking about this right now, I think about prisoners like Nelson Mandela, and I think about what he must have gone through. In some of his books, he wrote about the abuse he suffered, the prisons he was in, the prison guards. There are different temperaments, there are different behaviors toward him, and different ways they treated him over the 27 years of incarceration. I think about the physical, mental, emotional trauma he must have endured. And then I wonder about his internal guards, right? I think about his internal need for self control to stay dedicated to his cause, his why. I think about his internal gatekeepers controlling his thoughts, actions, beliefs, and how he might have negotiated to survive. I wonder how he gave himself permission to continue hoping, permission to continue shining in the deepest, darkest places, both physically and emotionally. And so that after 27 years, he was freed physically, but there was also this psychological, internal freedom, like from the inside out, his ability to be humane and graceful to his captives. I often wonder about what was going on inside of him. How did he manage that? And I think about myself, and trauma is trauma, right? It's subjective and it doesn't care who you are, where you are. And so each individual's experience is different. But hurt is hurt, and pain is pain, and suffering is suffering. And while we all have the ability, I don't know that we all have the know how, right? And so I hope this podcast serves as some kind of idea, right? Like some kind of glimmer of hope, some kind of ray of light in the darkness, that you hear this and know what's possible, or think about giving yourself permission to think about what's possible. So that maybe you're loosening bricks or challenging those always or nothing narratives and looking for those exceptions. Nelson Mandela is just one example. We all know trauma victims who became trauma survivors. And then post-traumatic teachers. So I want to invite you to look at your own story, your own journey, and look for your own exceptions, those moments when the pain isn't as bad, when it's not as dark, those exceptions. And I want you to consider making some windows, however small, but that light gets in, that fresh air gets in, that possibility gets in. And just, I want to invite you to explore some potential post traumatic changes toward your own emotional and psychological freedom. And just in the smallest ways, just start with those what ifs. I want to thank you again for your courage, your permission, your time. I look forward to your questions and your comments. And until next time, be well.